We are live now. Good morning, everyone. I welcome you all at Governance Now Digital India Roundtable, powering Digital India with Hybrid Cloud, co-powered by Nutanix. The COVID-19 pandemic has prompted the public sector to accelerate the adoption of new technologies. Today, we shall deliberate on how public sector is leading the way towards Digital India. And before we begin the panel discussion, we have an interesting presentation on powering the digital journey of the public sector from Sri Sanjay Shintre, Head of Systems Engineering Group, Government Business, Nutanix. Sanjay, over to you.
Thank you, Pragya, for a brief introduction. And good morning to all of you. So I will just share the screen. Pragya, I think so. You have disabled the participants.
Yeah. Now you can share.
So let me share the screen and start the presentation. I hope all of you are able to see my slides. Sohan sir and Samir sir, are you able to see the slides?
Yeah, it is visible.
Yeah, it's visible.
Thank you.
Yes, Sanjay, it's visible.
Thank you. So welcome to the Powering the Digital Journey by Nutanix. So today, what we are going to see is what has been the major factors for the business to change and survive and thrive in the new digital era or the new digital economy is how and where we can go. Apart from pandemic, prior to pandemic, the digital era had already started, but there was always a hindrance, or I would say there was a limitation with the erstwhile legacy architecture. With the legacy architecture, which is proven, tested on the ground, but we always have a back of our mind that there is always an area of improvement. There were certain challenges. The challenges were like having the isolation, having the complex architecture, having the limited performance, having the limited scalability. And on top of it, we were having a vulnerable cyber attacks, plus a siloed different various OEMs. So at this point or at this cusp of our journey, okay, into the digital era, we always used to think that whether public cloud is the most adaptive way to go ahead and change our entire economy. Because in public cloud, we had the rapid time to market, we have single click of operation, we have fraction of IT consumption. Like, for example, for any application, if we require a point in one core or something like that, we can consume that. And a continuous innovation. So what if Nutanix can bring everything same to on-premise, and on top of it also give a secured network, a secured premise, okay, for the data, where your data governance and data sovereignty is intact. So how we do it? Now, on this earlier side of my legacy architecture, so what we have changed? We have changed by bringing bunch of x86 and Intel servers with storage, network, and security integrated with that, with various Intel servers. So again, if I'll move on. So what we have done is with virtualization and containers, we have embedded with our solution, where in a single click, where the application and database can be implemented. Now, the message over here is that one platform. So when I say one platform, so the digital hyperconverged infrastructure is our platform. On top of it, we can have the data center services like storage, networking, business continuity, or a DR. Then bringing the cloud native application, cloud native functionalities like DevOps services or automation or database as a service. Bringing the data desktop services, the VDI kind of a services. Now, for all these services, what we have done is, okay, on top of it, where we can run any enterprise application, any cloud native application, any databases, any IoT or any. With this, we have formed our entire private cloud. Now, the second was with the private cloud, whether I can move seamlessly to the public cloud. So we have our Nutanix where we can move seamlessly to the public cloud without changing much of any application landscape. So how we deliver it? Now, as I explained, that with the storage, all the enterprise storage features, whether it is deduplication, whether it is compression, whether it is erasure coding, whether it is sync replication, async replication, with all the bunch of servers that has a storage capacity in it with the networking capability. So we have our Acropolis hypervisor or AHV, what we call it. So now over here, we have given the freedom, okay, where we can have ESXi or the VMware hypervisor also. You can run any application which is hindrance towards only for VMware application, VMware hypervisor, or you have already invested on VMware hypervisor, we can install VMware hypervisor also on this, or a Hyper-V. Moving on, without compromising any high availability features, okay? So we deliver with ultimate performance. Now, to manage all this entire infra, we have our own Prism console. With single window, we can do a complete automation of the entire infra. If you want to have any quick look on how the network within the various VMs are moving, with a single click, you can get a complete. We also give the predict analysis of, say, for example, we are having a cluster of 10 or 15 physical servers, Nutanix servers, where you want to have a prediction of next down the line 6 months for my citizen services. If at all I will require additional servers or storage or memory or whatever. So we give a complete predict analysis on that. Now, if you want to store any of the data, archival data, say for example, Aadhaar copy, or currently considering the vaccination programs which are happening across the country, the digital certificates of vaccination, if you want to store from a citizen services point of view, you will require a file or object kind of storage. So for that, you don't have to go ahead and raise a RFP or get a new filer or a object storage for it. Within the Nutanix cluster, you can also have a file service or an object service where you can store all these certificates in a very secured way. Now, with all this, within you can multiply it from one to many or many to one. You can do the replication also from a DR perspective or a disaster recovery perspective. So while doing this, so what we have added is that from application lifecycle management or a cloud automation lifecycle management, we have our solution which is called as Calm. With Calm, you have 50 ready-made blueprints which are available. The blueprints cuts across with Hadoop kind of a file system or with your Postgres as a database or your MySQL as a database, where with a single click, where you can deploy a predefined VMs on the cluster. Now, when you are deploying this, we also ensure that all these VMs have been secured through our Flow, which is a micro segmentation solution. What we can do is that as per the security guidelines set by the CISOs of your organization, we can say that, okay, fine, we can, while creating the template, we can allow or disallow what are the ports as per the CISO guidelines or the security policy guidelines. We can also put across or install the same templates from a return of investment point of view, where you have already invested on a 3-tier architecture with VMware kind of hypervisor. You can implement all those VMs also out over there. Now, this gives a complete secured private cloud. So as a next step, what we have done is that if you want to burst certain applications into your public cloud, where you want those applications to be implemented on public cloud, through Calm itself, where you can manage entirely on your public cloud. Now, moving ahead, where from a database perspective, if you want to do a database deployment, a provisioning, a cloning, or a database backup in a secured way, if you want to do a database patch management, we can completely do with Era. So now if you'll compare this feature with Amazon's or AWS RDS, the cloud relational database services, with a single click where you can install a database or provision a database, you can do a copy data management. When I say copy data management, it is nothing where you can copy the entire data into a single store. Now, if you want, say, for example, an Oracle database and Oracle application to be moved to a public cloud, which is on either AWS or an Azure. So with AHV cluster or a Nutanix cluster, what we can do is that you can seamlessly move it to a public cloud, where again, the entire operation of this can be controlled through Prism console itself. So now if you'll see, for various applications, for various operations, the single Prism console, you can do it. Now, with this, your entire picture, which is of hybrid cloud, okay, is formed. So at one end, you're having your public cloud, you're having a public cloud, and on premises where your data, data is secured and data governance is there, data sovereignty is there. For that, you also have your own public cloud, which is under fully your control within a secured way. So as I spoke on the Prism, if in a normal scenario, you will have various dashboards to monitor it, whether it is your application dashboard, whether it is your security, whether it is your server health checkup, whether it is self-service or storage or data protection or virtualization. What we have done, we have consolidated everything under this one single Prism console. Okay, so where with one single click over here, you can easily make out what is the health status of my VM, and it also gives you the predict analysis for next 6 months. What is my growth or what are the additional workload for which the growth is required. While doing all those things, we have never ever compromised on from a security angle. In fact, security has always been a paramount and the first necessity for us while developing all the solutions. So now we take it for a database masking. Okay, so with Era, the solution what I just talked about. Okay, on that, with that you can do a database masking also. Say for example, you want to mask the data and put it onto a public cloud for certain developments. You can easily mask the production data and give it on the public cloud in some few minutes. Okay, so that is the power of data, and that is we call it innovation for a single click deployment to the TND environment. Now, from encryption data, the key management, we have our entire integrated functionality of key management. If you want to have a key management separate from the Nutanix for the overall rest of the securities, we can easily integrate with any of the third-party key management solutions also. Now, just to summarize, so at Nutanix, what we are doing it, we are giving a freedom of choice from a x86 server's point of view, where you are not bound to any of the x86 server hardware OEM. We are giving a choice of public cloud also. We are giving a choice or freedom of choice for the hypervisor point of view also, without compromising the system. Now, if I have to summarize in a diagrammatic way, it is like you're having a private cloud out over here and your public cloud. So now if you'll see, you're running either your VDI setup, either your database setup, or any application, a cloud native, or any analytical setup. So what we are saying initially is that you have, from a private cloud perspective, from a hardware OEM, we are giving a choice to you, a freedom, whether it can be Fujitsu, it can be Dell, it can be HP, it can be Inspire, Hitachi, anything. And at the same time, on public cloud also, whether it is AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud, okay, the freedom is there with you. Okay, so we are not binding you or locking you with anything. So we are giving the entire freedom of this. So coming to this, we have the excellent industry leading support centers. So what we do and how we do, we are having 24/7 by 365, follow the sun support model. With exquisite this kind of a model, we are able to achieve and maintain a 90+ net promoter score for 5 years. In fact, for more than 5 years. We have the customer satisfaction of 97%. So this is what the customers are trusting us and giving repeated orders to us. This is just a glimpse of some important customers, some government important customers. So now if I have to pick an example out over in this slide, which is Telangana State Data Center. In Telangana State Data Center, we have our database provisioning solution, which is Era. And they manage almost some 100+ database instances where they do day-to-day operations. And they are saying that it's a blessing actually to maintain the databases. Now, if I have to choose further some critical use cases from a government customer perspective. So if I have the intense and competition and change, okay, which is like the demand is where I can deploy with one single click, tens of multiple thousands of users, okay, which is called a speed to market. So I have done it at NIC. If I have to ensure that the security is ultimate from a solution perspective, or the outmost or the topmost priority for that. Then we have done that at RISL, where they have linked the Aadhaar card and Bahamas card, which is of the Rajasthan, their own business, for the digital certificate, and which is very prime and absolutely integrated with from a secured environment. IIRS was looking for a cloud-like agility because the traditional or the legacy infrastructure was pulling them down from a go-to-market or from a further development into that, where the improvisation was required. So we have given that improvisation layer to that by having a Nutanix cluster out over there. Coming to Uttarakhand, okay, so Uttarakhand state as such, okay, where the entire state data center runs on Nutanix, where all the citizen services or the e-offices of Uttarakhand runs on Nutanix. So these are the key use cases from a government perspective. Now, in India, we have more than 600 customers actually, and in various verticals. So whether it is BFSI, IT, ITS, or manufacturing, or travel, or anything as such. So that is how we are delivering. Now, just to compare what IDC has done, IDC has compared the Nutanix architecture or the Nutanix deployment for on-premise with the legacy architecture or similar kind of this thing or alternate architecture, if I have to put it across. So most of our all customers have got 62% lower TCO in 5-year time frame. The unplanned downtime which was there, that has gone down drastically by 85%. So these are the key things what IDC has proven. When Gartner started releasing the Magic Quadrant for HCI, right from 2018, okay, we have always been into a leadership quadrant. Nutanix has never ever gone away. In fact, we have some neighbors out over here, but Nutanix has always been there, right from the day the Gartner Magic Quadrant has started. And same is the case for Forrester also. In Forrester also, we have always been a leadership quadrant. Now, last year during the pandemic and when there were the lockdowns which were there, okay, during that phase of time also, Nutanix in India grew by almost 42%. The customer growth which was there, it was by 34%. The partners for us who are there, they have grown by 51%. The employees, okay, where we would have heard a lot of things where there were job recession and all those things, but we grew by another 17% on year-on-year basis. For last 11 consecutive quarters, we have always been rated #1 in IDC. Just to give, if you are looking for optimized solution, automation, and scalability, please partner with Nutanix for your success. With that, thank you very much, and I will hand it over to Pragya.
Thank you, Sanjay ji. It was indeed a great insights on various things that you have covered. And now we are moving towards our roundtable discussion on Digital India, for which I would like to invite our speakers. And I welcome our speaker, Shri Sameer Vishnoi, CEO, Chhattisgarh Infotech and Biotech Promotion Society, Shri Srinivas Bhusarapu, Chief Information Security Officer, Pension Fund Regulatory and Development Authority, Shri Krishan Kumar Sharma, Chief General Manager, Center for Excellence in Postal Technology, CEPT, Department of Post, Ministry of Communications, Government of India. I welcome Shri Sohan Nautiyal, Head SEMP Odisha, and I welcome Shri Ganesh Iyer, Head of Government Business Nutanix. I welcome you all at the discussions today.
Thank you, Pragya.
So we can start the discussions, and all the cameras and mics are working.
Yeah, thank you. I think it was a good insight. Sorry, I could slightly delayed in joining. Very good insight from the Mr. Sanjay, giving some hybrid cloud possibility. So actually, it is a good opportunity for us to learn in terms of how do we take our postal things for the next phase of technology. We are right now working on our 2.0 version of the IT DOT. Had actually undergone a centralized solution experience for the past 8 years plus when we rolled out our previous phase of 2012 for BOP IT we have used some core products like core banking and core insurance and our postal and common solution in the SAP. So now going forward, we are trying to look at how do we unbundle and how do we harness the possibilities of the area which is, I think, Sanjay has covered. Uh, we are presently working on the UIs for our 2.0, and we are very looking at it from a cloud hybrid perspective, in the sense that we are having banking insurance, which is the financial services, which I think yet to become fully cloud enabled, particularly in the India perspective. And the kind of load which India Post has is also making it slightly a cautious kind of a approach towards taking everything to cloud. So I think hybrid comes out with kind of a choice which need to be looked at very seriously. We are having some IT consultants also. So maybe we can have some with the independence. If they are based in Bangalore, we are also based out of Bangalore. We can have some deep dive discussions also. Just one question. Requirement, when I say that India Post is having huge volumes, so we are actually in banking, we are sitting with almost 30 crore plus. We do almost 5 million transactions a day. Similarly, on the insurance side, we are having 30 million account holders. And on the postal side, we do almost 3 million plus transactions a day. That is only on the mail pieces. Then we do so many other things. For example, a lot of counter services we offer, including bill acceptance or the passports or the UIDI and other things. So actually post office is very well placed as a last point to deliver all those services. So we are looking at how do we take this understanding of the hybrid thing so that we can use something which we are comfortable on premise, and certain things can be moved on to the cloud, either public or maybe even NIC cloud to go forward. Just one question here is this Prism thing, which you are saying it can be a common point to understand entire managing the traffic and the other things, including the applications and the infra availability. So maybe just to understand, is it definitely it's a your proprietary kind of a product. So how do we go about using that in the kind of approach in terms of the open source, in terms of the flexible approach towards the commitment to a particular product? So I think that is what the initial reaction to that. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you, sir, for your introductory remarks. So we'll start the panel discussion now. The digital post reset of the country of 1.3 billion people is not only technological advancement, but more importantly, it is a foundation of a new mechanism for deliverance of good governance. The use of technology is decentralizing decision-making, bridging communities with local government across cities and towns now. And the joint public-private partnerships is making push to digital India and digital first country and resetting the life experience of more than 1 billion people. So let's have views from our expert how new technologies are steering the government towards their digital India roadmap. So I would request Srinivas Kusaparu, CISO Pension Fund Regulatory, to share his insights. So you're on mute.
Okay. Good morning, Gupta ji, and welcome to all the audience. It is my pleasure to share a few experiences and knowledge regarding the Digital India movement. And this is a good journey for me to discuss with you on digital transformation, especially in the Digital India concept. Especially if you look at a few areas like banking, insurance, pensions, there's a lot of changes that had happened in digital transformation. And in that next 5 to 10 years, what we require, we should also understand on that, because there is a lot of changes are happening. So to get into that, we require the capacity building for the young engineers, number one. And number two is we should understand the emerging technologies. What are the emerging technologies are there? How we can use the technology for the enablement of various services in the Digital India movement. And next one is we should understand the domains. Always we are thinking about the Digital India. So in order to enable that, we should understand the various domains, like finance is there. Now, the next moment is coming up is the farmer producers companies, farmer fintech companies. So fintech should come like anything to get into the things. And another area is trade financing thing. Wherever you, if it is public sector or private sector, we should understand the trading platforms. In order to do that trading platform, we should get into various government platforms. Like now, if you want to establish a farmer producers companies, so what are the things they require? How we are going to onboard them? Then whenever they want to get into any trading business or to get into their market intelligence, to get onto the in-arm integration or to get into their pension systems. So how you are going to integrate them and how they will be benefited out of it, either part of a digital double the farmer income. So those kind of things, if you are integrated into the a Digital India movement, it will go like anything. That is one area. And people should understand the domains. That is important now. So technology, anyhow, we can learn, but that should be mapped to our domain things. So whether it is public sector units or private companies, they should understand the domain. Then they can serve for the private sector. In this way, we can get more things into the Digital India movement. So this way, so few things. Subsequently, we will discuss more on this. This way, we will continue our discussion in the roundtable.
Okay, you're on mute.
Sorry. So, Sohan sir, can we have your views how the state is steering towards Digital India?
Yeah, Pragya. Thanks, everyone. Good morning, all. Thanks, government's now giving me the opportunity to be part of this discussion on Digital India Roundtable Conference. As the technology is one of the key things for any of the currently. So that's this is one of the key charter of the state as well, as per our Honorable Chief Minister. Also, one of the out of the five T, technology is one of the key charter. So that's how this can be enabled to provide all the services to the citizen. So there are a couple of quickly I would talk about different use cases which is going to help the technology perspective, how it's going to help e-governance perspective. One is the bluish, that is Bhubaneswar land use intelligent system, because it's a flagship development for the GA department, which is being done, a mobile web and mobile based application, which is a solution has been developed to monitor the changes in all government lands in the Bhubaneswar by leveraging the high resolution satellite imagery. Yeah, that's so. What exactly means the technology has been used in such a way that so that there is no land encroachment and the things can be tracked. And similarly, there is the other thing, how exactly it is going to help. There is another Odisha one. There is one window which provides all the services which is provided by the different department. So as a citizen, he need not go to different services or different department or website for availing the services. Instead of that, there will be a single window where and the citizen can log in and get the avail the services. So, and this is also a scalable model. So down the line, how exactly this is going to help as part of down the line. It's not just for today, but it's down the line. This can be used. Okay. Similarly, there are other technology which is definitely helping. Like e-Pravesh, so visitor pass management system, where typically this can be used for facial recognition. Okay, for authenticity of the people who are entering into this entering into the premises. So all these are the key things which is going to help technology is going to help in some or the other way. And see, because the other thing is some of the technology which is being used for AI techniques, okay, for predictive analytics, and then we are using for keeping track of paddy procurement or selling the paddy. So use of the blockchain, so that people cannot tamper the data. Okay, so that's how the technology is helping in the different citizen in order to avail the services. Okay, so yeah, so this going forward, when we have the next other details, I will be quickly updating in more detail. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Sohan sir. It was a wonderful insights about various initiatives that you are taking. And now I request Shri Samir Vishnoi, CEO, CHIPS, to share his insight.
Good morning. Today's discussion on Digital India via hybrid cloud. Since hybrid cloud is upcoming and it is very much in fashion in private world, and now government is also realizing that it has to move on from public cloud or private cloud to hybrid model. So it is very much relevant for this age. And since COVID pandemic, as it is quite relevant that most of us are working from home, and citizens are also expecting some kind of digital or online service for their needs. So it is imperative that load on storage services will increase, because more and more people will come on digital domain, and hence our storage needs will also increase. So hybrid cloud will provide us that solution, which will not require much on-prem storage, much power, security, those things, and we can easily manage things via hybrid model. So I welcome these changes, and how state governments are reacting to this is that I think majority of new proposals for SDC and other data centers, they are now moving to hybrid model only, because governments have also realized that making on-premises data center on capital intensive model, it is since hardware will progress faster, so hardware development, so all the hardware which we will purchase today, it will become out of date after 2 years. So they are also going on cloud model, and more so on hybrid model. They are realizing that it has various advantages, and so they are looking for that. And I expect that this will increase, but it will also be nice to see how it will mix with new other ideas like blockchain and other such things, which pose a challenge to cloud or storage thing, because each of these new technology, it has its own benefit, and whether they can be clubbed together or they can be supplementary to each other, it has to be seen. And since right now we don't have very large number of examples to see it. So they are, all these alternatives are still fighting for their space, and it will be very good to see competition in future. For Digital India, like each state government is having its own agenda of priority of schemes, which is has to deliver, and some of it are on cloud model and some of it on traditional model. And as a hybrid model will come, then it will state government will shift to that.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for the wonderful insight. So I am coming back to you for the next question after we do this round. And my next question is to Shri Kishan Kumar, sir. If you can just share your insights, more insights, in fact, on your initiatives toward Digital India.
Yeah, actually, I think the theme is coming out correct. The way the technology is taking shape, and infra, no doubt, is one of the essential part, and it needs to be taken care of by some specialist in terms of going forward. And as an initial point, the hybrid looks like moving from already our investments and then taking it to the, maybe in due course of time, it will reach to the complete cloud kind of a possibility. One question which may come is that whether there is any roadmap for this hybrid thing, which is right now is one of the required way for the looking like going forward. So if we look for 5 to 7 years kind of a horizon, how do we look at this hybrid thing on the table now? And what could be the next possibility in the cloud, if we can have some interaction on that, whether this cloud itself can become interoperable, which is presently, I think it's not so straightforward as per my understanding. So maybe somebody can clarify that point for our benefit.
Sure, sir. Okay. And now coming to Mr. Ganesh Iyer, sir, as Nutanix, you are one of the technology partner working with the government in driving their Digital India initiatives. What do you see from outside with respect to Digital India roadmap and your role in this?
That's a great question, Pragya, because I think whatever we are seeing has been captured very eloquently by all the speakers. The common thread that I were to tie it across, right? If I start with Shri Kishan Kumar ji, he started off with the migration of India Post from being just across standard post operation towards moving to banking, moving towards last mile delivery of passports. I myself have availed of the banking services of India Post around 5-6 years back when I had some of my FDs, and that was a revelation for me. Now, the transition of the India Post, as we remember, right, being just like a postal service, towards a complete metamorphosis of what it is now for citizens in really faraway areas, in really faraway remote areas, giving them the link to the government services, is something that defines the success or failure of what has been the citizen outreach. Now, there are 2 or 3 points that stood out across whatever Shri Kishan Kumar ji said, or Shri Srinivas ji said, or Sohan ji, or Samir ji. One was the load, right? When I say about load, this has been our observation when we look at government operations per se from Nutanix's perspective, and that is common across Indian government as well as any other federal government that we work with. The load or the traffic that government ends up handling is humongous, right? It cannot be compared with any of your enterprises who are working for a profit business. Now, this again dovetails into my second point, right? Private sector undertakings, or rather private establishments, are more towards for-profit kind of a scenario, while all of the government initiatives are for citizen services. These are all not for profit, right? In the entire mammoth initiative that we are having for citizen services, these are the challenges that we see government grappling with. One, as I said, huge load. Two, the point that was brought across by Sri Srinivas, Sri Sohanji, and Sri Krishan Kumarji in terms of the interoperability. And a very nice point made by Samirji in terms of what is the roadmap, which was also touched back by Krishan Kumarji in terms of where do we see it going 5 to 7 years down the line. Now, some of these are already present, right? We have been working very closely with really large initiatives with state governments. We've also worked with defense organizations. I think it was, I think Srinivasji or I think Sohanji who mentioned about the Bhubaneswar land use system, wherein you have the high resolution photographs with which you would want to discern whether there is a misuse of government property happening or not. Similar kind of solution has already been deployed with one of the sensitive labs in defense, with goes by the name of Indian Institute of Remote Sensing. They help in the space applications and mapping out of the geoterrestrial space for a lot of activities for defense as well as state governments. That is already in play. Same holds true in terms of end user citizen experience, which I think was touched across by Samir Vishnoiji as well as Soham Notialji, right? Because end of the day, as a citizen, and given the fact that COVID has struck us very, very badly, all of us expect the government services to be ubiquitous, right? It's like I switch on the light, I switch on, and the fan should operate, right? It is taken for granted. Government is also taken for granted by the common citizen because their expectation is that government is all encompassing and they are here to take care of me, right? And the way that they look at government services is also that seamless. So if you look at it, initially the entire nationalized scenario that we used to have, from where it moved post 80s to the privatization, and now it's gone to public-private partnership, is actually very similar to the evolution of cloud elsewhere. Nationalized can be considered as your private cloud inside your own data center, right? Privatization is possibly the public cloud wherein you have all the players who are for profit, be it an Amazon or any one of AWS or any one of these cloud service providers. And the public-private partnership is the hybrid cloud evolution, wherein as government, you decide that these are some of the services that I would rather want inside because the PII, the publicly identifiable information, is very sensitive. Example might be an Aadhaar, right? Example might be a medical record. All of these things I would rather want to have it inside. But for burst requirements, wherein let's say there is a huge event coming, like a Jagannath Rath Yatra or the Mahakumbh for now, or monitoring center on COVID, wherein the entire traffic is going to be so huge that I would need it to be bursted across. That is where I would want to leverage the public cloud. And there is already a mechanism present wherein we see governments leveraging both sides of the aspect by having their applications seamlessly migrate from where they are currently inside to a public cloud. So in a nutshell, the problems that government and the government entities end up grappling with in the most of the scenarios is one, the huge amount of load. So you need to have a system, or rather you need to have someone who understands the end services that government is giving. For example, the Department of Post, what all do they give? Or from a state standpoint, what are all these citizen services that you cater to, right? And then architect a solution that is present, but it is not all encompassing, because for a citizen or for a government arm, they would rather want to focus upon their objective, which is citizen services, which is, let's say, a disaster management or so on and so forth, rather than spending time on where do I put my application? Should I put it inside? Should I put it outside? Will it be secure here? Will it be secure there? So that is where we are looking the transition happening towards adopting a solution that cuts through all of this, is very easy and simple to manage and implement. So that's where we see the government initiatives going towards adoption of such kind of technologies. And once you bring in the advanced level AI, ML, or the blockchain part of it, right? I think there was one input on the Orissa one, wherein the endeavor was to recognize facial recognition and then figure out who the person is in terms of attendance, so on and so forth. We already have a similar kind of project running in Bangladesh in a testing scenario, wherein they are trying to figure out the crowd control basis facial recognition on an IoT platform that's built on top of what Nutanix has to offer. So most of these initiatives across governments, across geographies are very similar. The only difference is India possibly leads, or rather it is very close to the pole position in and around China in terms of the depth of transactions, the load of transactions. From an Indian perspective, we see huge amount of load, and that is what actually differentiates the entire citizen services of the system.
Thank you, Ganesh. Thank you for making in-depth points about adoption and technology. And now, since I asked Sohan, sir, it is said cloud and data centers are enabler for today's digital world. And in times like COVID, how government foresees cloud as an enabler for facilitating work from home situations for government officials in your seat? How are you preparing or prepared?
Yeah, the question is to me, right? Yeah. Or
should I repeat the question?
Yeah, no, I got the question. Yeah, so it is for me. Yeah, okay, fine. So basically, in COVID situation, what the government has done is that one of the key initiative was that we had to enable all this similar to e-office. We have automation system, office automation system. So we had to enable for each and every employees means VPN connectivity so that they could work from home. So that which is going to definitely help people if there are any, because it's a typical file system, and if any of the citizens are requiring some of the things to be moved, so that could be done and from working from home. That was one of the key things during the pandemic. Okay. And apart from that, the other key things were direct benefit transfer, which once it is decided to provide some scheme based on the scheme, there should be some transfer of money to the beneficiary. So direct benefit transfer was one of the things which is one of the thing which is done by the government to the citizen. Okay, during the pandemic, it also helped them a lot. And the other thing, as I was talking about the Odisha one platform, one window from which from where citizen can log in and avail the services, and there are around 540 services which citizen can avail from one single window. So that's the other thing. And the virtual classroom, which each and every department is, the education department could use it for for education perspective. So and apart from that, the other thing is that because of the cloud or the data center perspective, even if there are certain applications which are developed by different department, and this could be hosted remotely by the department on the cloud. Okay, and they are giving they are provided some credentials in between so that they can use it to deploy the application, and they need not come to data center and provide basically avail the facility. So these are the key things which has helped during the pandemic. And the other application which was developed, and because Odisha dashboard, that state dashboard which cover all the aspects of COVID, how many people are reinfected, or and so on and so forth. All details is at the district level. It provides the details of the COVID situation. Okay, in the state and across India as well. So these are the key things as part of the COVID, where we have seen that government was involved completely. And even yesterday, I had been to one of the call center, call center where exactly how many doctors are there, available, and because there was a sudden peak in the number of cases in in COVID. So just ensuring that we have the people in place in the call center who can provide the services from there only. Like we have 104 number where directly a patient can interact with the doctor, and doctor can provide immediate solution for whatever is required. So these are the key things, and yeah, so that is it.
Thank you so much, sir. And sir, Sameer sir, I'm coming back to you since my question is on cloud. How are you enabling your work from home situations for government officials in your state?
It is very much like everywhere. Like in our own organization, we have digital secretariat project, which is like e-office. So we are using that. And for other departments, they are using traditional model for work from home. Because unless there is a overall acceptability of digital secretariat, like e-office, till then our whole government can't be on digital platform. So for IT department, we are using this digital solution, and for other departments, they are working on traditional way. But still, if we don't see digital e-office as a part of work from home, then also people are using, mostly relying on emails and more so on WhatsApp. So they are using WhatsApp, and they are using video conferencing facility to work from home.
Thank you, sir. Security is an important part, and since Srinivasa, you look after security, what kind of security challenges in technology, infra, and governance that are still prevalent for G2G or G2C Connect? And what are the methods that could be adopted to bring in reforms in this area to address the security concerns?
Yeah, especially this is a major concern area when we are adopting the hybrid cloud. Recently, I had a discussion with a few banks and insurance companies and pension funds. When I reviewed that, few exclusions are there in that service level agreement. In that, especially, who is the owner of the data, and who is, if any computing fails, who is going to handle it? What are the responsibilities of the cloud owner as well as the business owner? That's where we are facing a lot of issues. I think Ganesh can should understand these kind of things, especially in the governance part. And another one is whenever we are looking at Amazon and Google, those clouds, there, whenever we asked about a disaster recovery center or a high availability center, they are saying we are managing location based centers are there, but we had few concerns. Another one is because as a part of a Digital India, most of the time what we are thinking as per the Information and Cyber Security Act of India, we are seeing that we should make our data should be reside in India. That is a major thing. And another one is continuously, whenever we ask for vulnerability assessment or penetration testing, that is whose responsibility. If you are including as a part of package, how you are giving that, because DR is a service you are giving, infrastructure as a service you are giving, software as a service you are giving, everything you are giving. But when coming to the security as service, whether you are bundling, how you are bundling is important. That's why I think 10 years back when we started with IBM banking community cloud, so there also we faced few issues. Still few areas are in the same way. If you clarify those things and build the capacity for the business people like insurance or pensions or banking, basically they should understand that who is responsible who is responsible. In that, few GAN we should have to give it to the management level and technology level and CISO. These three people should understand that whenever we are asking them, they are not able to give the answers. That's where their project is stuck there only, because it is going there. If I want to go onto the cloud platform, I should clarify all this. Then only I can go. Otherwise, it is coming back again. So that's where it is residing, how the vulnerability assessment and penetration testing is going to happen, and how you are allowing regulator to come and audit if any audit is required or any inspection is required. You should allow them. Those are the major concerns we should clarify for the business owners. Then only most also I asked few people, few companies, how you are handling your part, your roles and responsibilities, because the cloud is giving tremendous features and cost benefit and efficiency. Everything is good, but whenever they are taken infrastructure as service and other responsibilities lying with the business owners, but they are not having that technical people team for them, they'll handle the data. They'll onboard into the clouds. Cloud, we are absolutely okay with the cloud, because if you look at even e-office and all the things are there in the cloud now, making like anything, even identity management, access management, then software licenses issues. We are not having anything in that. Even we are seeing small banks, they're onto the completely cloud, or their CBase is on the cloud. Just they're taking onto their PC, connecting, they're performing all the things, absolutely going fine. Even their financial switches also running on the cloud. But few questions whenever regulator rising, like how we are handling, what are your policies, whether regulator asking some VAPT reports, you should provide that. If you are providing, if you are now few cloud platforms enabled, directly they can download the reports, their VAPT reports, and they can see if any non-compliance is there, they are fixing it. So those kind of things are there. And coming to the more next potential areas, now if you look at any CCTV of ATM, and that should be 90 days residing. So you can imagine 16 TB store. If you take that onto the cloud platform, and if you apply AI and ML over there, so if a potential use case also you can explore, and you can we can use these hybrid wherever these devices, what are the devices are there. If you provide that related software on the computing platform on the cloud, they'll utilize the management or their device management. If you come into electricity and those kind of monitor that. In order to monitor, I require a lot of configure all these, because especially if you coming to the government part, they'll look at so how it is residing, how it is secure and safe, and who are having access to that, how the license is handled, then how you are helping them to perform their disaster recovery drills, DR drills, every 6 months, as well their vulnerability and assessment and penetration testing for every quarter, as well as and when any major changes are happened in the systems, you should support them. That's where they're handicapped. That's why we are also fearing of whether they're not providing, then how we are going to handle it. That's where you should give some capacity to the various PSUs and banks. Then objectively we are fine with to adapt the hybrid cloud model. So these are the things we are exploring. We require more and more into that. So I think Ganeshji can answer these kind of things. So how you are handling your part in your cloud, because we have seen Amazon and Google, all these we have seen, and after analyzing all the even Meghraj cloud also, we found all these gaps. That's where some fear is there for the business people. Even PSU is not saying, but they are in that only. Their concern is also the same thing.
So,
thank you, Pragna. Over to you.
Thank you, Srinivasi. Ganeshi, would you like to add on something from the industry?
Yeah, sure. I will take a stab at whatever Srinivasi has put across, as well as the inputs of Suhanji and Samirji. Right?
Srinivasi, if you're saying something, you're on mute.
Should I continue, Pragya? Okay. So I think the common thread of the overall conversation started with what the government is doing in the current scenario from a work from home situation, right? I think that's what Suhanji started with, along with e-learning classes and direct benefit transfers, right? Now, these are all some, so with the exception of direct, Srinivasi, if you're saying something, you are on mute.
Srinivas sir, you are on mute. If you can hear us.
इससे आप लोग किससे बात कर रहे हो? समीर बिश्नोई से?
नहीं श्रीनिवास जी सर.
अच्छा ठीक है. हाँ मेरे ऑफिस से कॉल आया, मैं उसमें क्योंकि हूँ.
जी जी सर, we are coming to you in the. Yeah.
You can continue. Yeah, you can continue.
Sure. So I think Suhanji brought across a very
Ragnaji, you can continue.
Okay. So Suhanji brought across a very strong point in terms of the work from home and the direct benefits, as well as the e-learning classes. And I think Samirji then brought across a very, very basic point that unless until the entire government does not adopt the e-learning as a central backbone, the overall endeavor will fail, because IT department is doing everything on the e-office. However, the rest of the departments are doing on the traditional mode. And that ties back to what Suhanji had brought across as a point on the direct benefit transfers schemes, as well as the work from home related to COVID. Unless until your backbone is singular, unless until your backbone is secure, and unless until your backbone is scalable, these endeavors that we are trying to get to the citizen will not translate into the results that we are looking at, right? So the first order of business is to have a technical backbone that is easy to adopt, easy to manage, very easy to scale with minimal amount of training, right? Because the business owners would not want to invest their time in terms of understanding the nuts and bolts of what goes beneath the system. Very simply put, right? All I'm bothered about when I open my smartphone is, do I have the applications for phone, contact, SMS, WhatsApp, etc., etc. I am not bothered about how Android works, right? I am not bothered about how Google Map works. All I want is that the application should function. So from the perspective of the business users, the government officials, and the citizens, the expectation is very simple. I am looking at the outcome. I am looking at the output. I am least bothered about what goes beneath the engine. I want an output. In this case, a direct benefit transfer, the money has to go in. So in a scheme like a Manrega or a Narega, right? You would want to have security built in so that it is monitored at every point of the transaction. And that ties up to what Srinivasji had to reiterate as a CISO, right? His points all started with security, went towards scale, came back to security. Right? It started with the security of who owns the data in a hybrid cloud. Then it went towards what do you do in terms of SLAs, then went to VAPT, and finally came back to again security, saying that even in a PSU kind of a scenario, the business owners are ready to adopt. We have seen different flavors of clouds. However, once we get down to the nitty-gritty of it, it becomes a challenge to manage security. So I will try to demystify this from what we have been working with some of our larger government initiatives. And one of our largest customers or patrons, patron should be the right word that I should be using, not customer. One of our largest patron has been the US Department of Defense, right? They have been our strongest and staunchest supporters way back in 2011 when we first shipped out the box, right? And their requirement was centered around only one thing. They were okay with simplicity, they were okay with manageability, they were okay with scalability, right? They had enough budget. They had one center point of ask, which was, we are looking at something which is completely secure, okay? You give us a box that is secure, which you own with regards to security certifications, and whatever we deploy on top of it will be our problem, right? So what happened was that we started off, unlike other evolutions, we started off by focusing first and foremost only on security. So all of our solutions had the NASA's and the Retina certification inbuilt in terms of the offering that we had to give. And basis that we built across the rest of the services on top. So coming back to Srinivasji's point of who owns the data or who takes care of VAPT, sir, it is more like owning a car, right? Owning a car, taking an Uber and having a chauffeur for your car, right? Now, owning a car is again my private cloud. I own end-to-end of what I'm going to do in that. The servicing of it, whether it works or not, so on and so forth. In an Uber, I am dependent upon the service providers, owners towards maintaining security. The Uber driver may be rash, the Uber driver may be very good, right? The condition of the car might be rash, bad, the condition of the car might be very good, right? And this ties up to the data locality part of what Srinivasji had to offer in terms of the law of land, right? Many times you may not be able to control where the data resides because by nature, cloud itself is disparate. However, when you look at the chauffeur-driven model, what you're having is you're having a chauffeur for hire. However, you are leveraging your own car, in which case you're still responsible for your own safety, the upkeep of the car, so on and so forth. So hybrid, the way that we see it evolving, is going more towards a middle path, wherein all the sensitive data and the sensitive applications that I want to offer to the citizen or I want to keep it under my control, governments are taking a look in terms of hosting it still in-house. However, have the ability to burst it to a cloud as and when it is required. I think Kishan Kumarji made that point in his opening remark, that interoperability of cloud is still a challenge, right? However, with Nutanix, you can actually burst it across to an AWS, an Azure, a GCP as and when you want if you have the credits. But the beauty of it is the virtual machine that you put across still abides by the security paradigm that you have put, right? It is not dependent upon the end cloud providers' dependency on security. So you are keeping the security at your own end. However, you are still managing to leverage the benefits of cloud if you want. So in a nutshell, the hybrid part of it is making the best of both worlds. What can I get in terms of security, control, sensitivity of a private cloud, and the extreme flexibility of a public cloud. That essentially brings across the hybrids application into the government as on date. I hope I've managed to give some inputs on this.
Yes, Ganesh, I think it is well covered. And now, since we are coming towards the end of the discussions, I would like to ask, everyone about their challenges and what kind of solutions they look for, their departments and for the state. So I will start with Shri Sameer Bishnoi, sir, and if you can just highlight, what kind of challenges, security challenges that you face, and what are the other challenges that you have that you would like to be addressed through PPP or with the current partners?
Well, I don't think there is any challenge, but there is only the thing which is looking is what kind of decision making we have to make, and that decision making is often a challenge, because in government decision making is always a challenge. Other than that, I don't think there is any challenge.
Sure, sir, and we really look forward that it with emerging technologies, maybe they can help in decision making also in times to come. And Kishan Kumar sir, when it comes to you, what kind of challenges that you face? with respect to G2C or G2G services delivery? Kishan Kumar sir, am I audible to you?
Yeah. Actually, as Samir was saying, in government doing business is the starting point of challenge. So no doubt we are having our internal requirements to be met in terms of the procedures and all. But definitely we are looking forward in terms of the turning around this requirement of taking infra as a service to the extent possible. Concentrate on our business of service delivery so that we can meet the expectations without running around for the supports. So I think it's a good start in terms of understanding the upcoming scenarios and the possibilities of ecosystem. I think PPP is a very right word here, which is coming up, and thanks to the MeitY and other the policy making which are going on. Hopefully another maybe end of this year, we will have a very good ecosystem which will help this journey from the complete on-prem to hybrid, and then maybe later on reaching to a like a real service infra as a service, completely moving to that. So no doubt security remains one small challenge in this, because somewhere having the comfort of maintaining entire thing on your own, when you hive off some portion to some outside, then attention. So that remains a challenge for some more time, and particularly where I think Mr. Sohan and all of us who are part from the users, they are handling the last citizen kind of a last mile, and the security challenge is really very high on that. The way that things are taking shape with the commission and omission from both sides. Our own users sometimes are not knowing many things, and then the ecosystem is having a lot of people who are out to hoodwink the protocols. So from that angle, I think it's a good start. We are looking forward very positively, and we work on this because in India Post we have the banking, insurance both, which are yet to be fully comfortable with moving out to the cloud, even in the industry perspective. So definitely hybrid looks like a first step towards that, and some customer facing, some low-level activities we are looking at moving to there. So I think we will be, as I told that this industry people are in Bangalore, so we may try to get in touch slightly more and understand it more. Our requirement is actually very huge in terms of the network, in terms of the data. We are already having almost 2 petabyte data, and so things are not normally startup type or a small requirement. We are having huge requirements. So accordingly, we are, and this is the right time. I think thanks to the organizers also, we could get some insight into it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. And Sohan sir, coming to you now, what would be your insights on that? On the challenges?
So basically, by clear understanding is that so we have to work towards minimum government and maximum governance. So how exactly we could make out? So number of application or whatever initiative is done. So it is a scalable model. It should be a scalable model, so that if certain application services are available today, and that can be availed going forward as well. And similarly, there is another thing internet as part of the infrastructure, internet connectivity down the line. If you see in Gram Panchayat or in the remote areas, so it's still a challenging. Okay, so for that, though we have covered around 50-60% in the Gram Panchayat, so that new fiber optics cable laid down at that level. So zero downing it to that will be one of the helpful. So these are the things where we have slowly government is working on it, and even central government is investing on that. So these are the key things, where we see down the line, it should get streamlined. And yeah, so yeah, that is it from my end.
Okay, thank you so much. Sir, and now coming to Srinivasa for your final concluding remarks also. And since you covered those challenges really well, I would like to have your concluding remarks on your challenges. Srinivasa. Srinivasa, can you hear me? So meanwhile, I can see him here. Maybe some issues, technical issues. So Ganesh, would you like to give your concluding remarks? Everybody has shared their challenges and their issues, and how do you think from the industry perspective you can take those challenges, or maybe share what you feel about these challenges?
Sure. So I think I'll start off with the first challenge that was outlaid by Sri Samir Bishnoi, which was that the decision making remains a challenge because, see, fundamentally, as we all understand, government is more oriented towards a non-profit kind of a scenario wherein it is all centered around the citizen services. And the central most tenet of a government operation is to go for the best solution at the most feasible price, right? The commercial delivery, the price delivery has to be done at a level which ensures that everyone has got a chance. At the same time, you ended up evaluating all available options, and which can benefit the citizen, right? That is the entire initiative of any government when you look at it, right? And for an initiative of that size, for an initiative of that mammoth size, the decision making, in my opinion, is still very fast because we've seen larger organizations falter at these levels of sizes. So from that perspective, while people might perceive that the government decision making is slower, they also need to understand that it takes into consideration a lot of factors, lot of avenues to offset any shortcomings, still pick up the best solution. So one manner in which we have been able to work and give a lot of complementary effort to government organizations has been to work on the end outcome, right? And thereby, which essentially means that we look at the functional outcomes that the government is looking to provide. For example, if it is in a authentication for an Aadhaar, right? End of the day, it is just the Aadhaar which has to get authenticated with an OTP from an SMS gateway, right? Now, in order to do that, you can have a number of solutions. However, if you define the outcome very clearly and you ensure that all those who are in the race can participate and offer their best bid towards the government, I think that makes it somewhat easier, more so from a decision-making point. From Krishan Kumar sir's perspective, I think he had brought across 2 points. One was security, on which I think me and Srinivas sir had a lot of inputs to share. And I do agree with Krishan Kumar sir that security is something that you have to nail it in. But I mean, going back to his initial opening remark, right? He had a couple of inputs with regards to PRISM and the scalability of it and whether it gets locked down into a specific OEM. Now, answering that, fundamentally, when you look at a solution, that solution has to give you the ability to be flexible in your choices, right? What I essentially mean is that my end outcome remains the same. However, the means in which I choose to reach to that can be as per my choice, right? And from Nutanix's perspective, the solutions, whatever we have to offer and whatever we've been working with most of the government organizations, have their core tenet as freedom of choice. And that's where we come in. So be it PRISM, be it, the hybrid cloud model, all of that have the maximum amount of flexibility and freedom when anyone needs to choose that to reach to their end objective. I will give an example here because I think Kishan Kumar sir had mentioned twice about the banking and insurance. I think one of the largest private public sector insurance companies, LIC, has successfully chosen and migrated over Nutanix because they, after a year or so of deliberation, found out that what we have to offer in terms of flexibility, freedom, and functionality at a very attractive price is making the business case very much viable under the strictures of government, right? So it comes back to the first point that if I'm able to define my end outcome and thereby have a functional requirement very clearly laid out, not restricting any participation, not restricting any competition, right? End of the day, the endeavor is to provide the best technical solution at the most comparable price. If we are able to work with the government organizations in terms of defining that, ensuring that they get maximum participation, I think decision making gets speeded up. And if security is inbuilt as a part of your overall DNA itself, then at least for Nutanix, I can very well state, given our experiences with US Department of Defense, as well as our own DRDO, our own Indian Air Force, wherein we've been working, or many other sensitive places wherein our solutions have been deployed, security is something that comes in very, inherently to us. So if we can collaborate across all these factors and make a value proposition which does not restrict choices to the governments, gives them the ability to discover a fair price, I think we should be able to partner and participate much better towards enhancing the digital India experience and the end citizens experience with the government service.
Thank you, Ganesh. And Srinivas sir, now we request for your concluding remarks.
Thank you, Pragna. Especially now, what we are thinking is a few better use cases. As a part of e-governance and Digital India, I think most of the people know national optical fiber grid is also coming up. And we have 6 lakh plus panchayatis are there. We have various softwares also there for that. So if you make that kind of data and computing on the cloud, it's more than enough. There you will get all the stack. If you make rural stack, I think one of the objective of the rural development is the rural stack is coming up very soon. Rural stack as well as India stack, then Asia stack. There consent is there, payment layer is there, KYC layer, all the things are there for every citizen. If you're and if that is in the process, for that if you provide the computing environment and infrastructure environment, we can reach everywhere. That is what the digital India. That's what we are expecting. And all the transactions, whatever performed for collection of property tax, or accounting, or what are the works are happening at every village, NREGA payments and onboarding of the NREGA people, pension onboarding, everything, the 6 lakh plus panchayatis, if you're enabling onto the cloud, it's like anything. And to get onto that, we need another support like the utilities and network utilities and computing utilities, as well as the common application softwares to enable that. And fundamentally, we should build their capacities at every level. Now, at every level, we have, as a part of NKN, all the universities are enabled now. On that platform, e-learning will come, then transactions will come, all the audit reports will come, all the things, identity management, access management. Then what are the works are identified over there? What are the pensions they are getting for them? And how their health profiling, PHC network enablement, all are in the pipeline. But for that, we require the best infrastructure in place provided with the hybrid cloud model. Because finally, it will come for the first is security, next one is the cost. How easily we can adopt the cloud, and how easily every panchayat.
So we lost. Is it me?
I think we lost Srinivas sir.
Srinivasa, we can't hear you in case there's some network issues in his hometown. Srinivasa, he might not be able to even hear us because of networking. So we can wait for another minute so that he can just conclude his remarks, and then we can close the panel. So meanwhile, he's joining any of the panelists if they would like to add on something to what you said, Ganesh, or what others have said. Any panelist would like to add. Meanwhile, he's joining. Just a quick thing. Sohan, so would you like to add something?
Yeah, so basically what Mr. Srinivas was saying, right? Typically, as part of the data center, what is being done. So they focused for security aspect, cyber security operations center. They are having, every data center is trying to have, which could help in protecting the data. Okay, which there will be a small team working continuously so that there is no attack on the server. Okay, and if any unwanted information are getting exchanged or vulnerable things, so that can be controlled by these people. So that's one of the things which I think is initiated from the center as well. So that's about the security aspect. Then the other key aspect which will be good for the government is that instead of people, citizen coming to government for the service, instead of that, it could be the other way, that once if citizen is applicable to avail the service, okay, then that message has to be triggered from them. So it's not only pull, it should be push from the government. So these are the key things which is going to help the citizen. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, I think he's facing some technical thing. So thank you so much everyone for joining us, and it was a wonderful discussion we had today, and lot many issues, lot many solutions, and lot many insights that have come up. I thank you everyone once again to join us today and make this panel discussions worth deliberating on. Thank you everyone.
Thank you everyone for your time. Sohan sir, Kishan sir, Samir sir, Srinivas sir, thank you so much for sharing your inputs and your viewpoints. Really appreciate it. Possibly in better times, we'll meet up face to face and deliberate more on the challenges and the solutions that we can give. In the meantime, stay safe, take India ahead towards a more safer and a securer outcome. Jai Hind.
Yeah, Ganesh, especially Ganesh, we should deliberate to most of the regulators, because we should build their capacity, because there only it is talking. So we should give them more gang, then high departments level. Then, because as a if you look at the CISOs level, CTO level, whatever justification they're given, they won't accept. First, on the top level, we should do, as well as the technology level people also, we should have to make them to collaborate with the hybrid cloud. Then people are ready to adapt. But few concerns are there. We should have to clarify that. In that way, we will establish a lot of cloud infrastructure. They'll onboard.
So I was just talking about the CSOC, that is Cyber Security Operations Center, which is getting means most of the data center are going for that. Even so that will be one of the key thing for protecting the data.
I was part of it. I'm one of the member in that. So that's what with government model we can go into that and we can adapt. through PPP is always required, because if you look at cybersecurity strategy 2025, there are a lot of PPP models are there to establish hybrid clouds. Basically, we should secure our data, whether it is land DOLR project or DBT project or NREGA, any project data, we should have to store it in a central place and secure it. That is our aim.
Okay, then thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sohan sir. Thank you, Kishan sir. Thank you, Srinivas sir, and thank you, Samirji, for the excellent insights. And we'll be more than happy to connect you again, as Ganesha said, face to face whenever the time provides. And meanwhile, before we meet face to face, we'll be again happy to connect either over on Zoom or over Teams or any way of digital media which is possible for you from your end also. So looking forward for that, sir.
Thank you, sir. And Kishan sir, would you like to add something?
Yeah, Kishan sir, you are saying something right now?
No, I'm just saying thank you very much. I think it was a good exposure. Thanks, organizers.
Thank you so much, sir. So I would like to once again thank you everyone. Thank you, Shri Samir Bishnoi, CEO, Chhattisgarh Infotech and Data Promotion Society, Srinivas Busarapu, Chief Information Security Officer, Pension Fund Regulatory and Development Authority, Shri Kishan Kumar Sharma, Chief General Manager, Center of Excellence in Postal Technology, Department of Post, Ministry of Communication and Media, Shri Sohan Natyal, Head SEM Odisha, Shri Ganesh Iyer, Head of Government Business Nutanix, and of course Shri Sanjay Tare, Head of Systems Engineering Group, Government Business Nutanix. Thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank you everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you.